Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Cowigowen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and TV that they loved before the first date. And this time I was made to watch Working Girl.
Yes, it's the movie that taught me that, among other things, never mix Valium and tequila. Bad things will happen, or good things, depending. But in general, don't do it. It's the 1988 rom-com directed by Mike Nichols with Melanie Griffith, Harrison Ford, and Sigourney Weaver as the bitch that we all know she can play.
And this is not the 1980s working female movie where the high-powered executive suddenly has a baby.
No. Yeah. Last time I mentioned that we were going to be watching this and Dave said, oh, I've seen that. That's the one with the baby, right? No, that's Baby Boom. That's entirely different.
I have seen this, but I have seen Baby Boom many times, which I said I've seen this many times. Mm-hmm. I have seen this before. It's been 20 plus. It's been early 90s, late 90s, probably mid 90s. So, yeah, it's been a long time, but I had seen it.
Well, I've seen it far more recently, and I would venture to guess that I have a different relationship with it than you do.
I don't see how that's possible. No, naturally you do.
Yes. I should also mention this is not the 1990s sitcom with Sandra Bullock.
That's wild.
Yes, which I never saw.
I never saw it either.
But I feel like Sandra Bullock would have been very good in this. So R.I.P.
Oh, yeah.
To that. I don't even know if that's available. Can you find that?
I don't know what it said. Wikipedia says it was 12 episodes
and it was promptly canceled
in 1990. So yeah, I bet it's somewhere, and nothing is truly lost these days. If we could get Near Dark back on streaming services, we can get anything.
There are some things that just seem to be lost forever. Like I have been looking for Circle of Friends streaming, and it is just nowhere. Like I'm going to have to buy it on VHS and then I don't know what, do something to make it watchable. Right. I don't know. But some things are lost forever. But hey, if you can find us the Working Girl sitcom, we will be grateful. I don't know. Give you a shout out. I don't know.
Future content for the Patreon we're never going to create.
Yes, exactly. But anyway, we're talking about the movie today. So this, I would say that we classify this as a rom-com, but to me, the romance is like tertiary. I don't even care about it so much. To me, it is all working backward from the last scene where, spoiler, Tess, Melanie Griffith, who has been toiling in these kind of shit secretary jobs, finally has been recognized for her business talent, and she starts a new job and she has her own office. That's the peak for me. I don't care about the romance, really.
Yeah, which is the business world equivalent of making it. Yeah. Like I've got my own office and my own secretary.
Yes.
Like that's it. That's the dream.
Yes. Can I just point out, I am 45. I have never had my own office. Now, I'm in the wrong industry to have my own office.
Well, yeah, especially with secretary.
Oh, no. I think having your own secretary went out when email became a thing.
Probably.
But I've barely had my own desk. Some places.
You're not missing much. I've had my own office several times, including the one time where we were put in a building where the only thing left were executive offices. And I had all of this really fancy red oak furniture.
How are you? But you're like a super introvert, though. You could be in your office and close the door and nobody would bother you. How is that not perfect? How is that not great?
And it was fine. But the thing about that is you get in your office and you shut the door and then you go and do your job that you could do from home and have done from home many times. And you just think, why the hell am I in this office with this door closed by myself when I could be at home doing this exact same job just as well, if actually not better?
Well, I should point out, I do have an office now because I work from home.
Yeah.
So it took a pandemic for me to have my own office. And it's not mine because I share it with an elliptical
and two cats
and
occasionally an 11-year-old,
right, who was I shared it with a kid doing virtual school for a year, so there was that. But I definitely don't have anyone who brings me coffee. That's too bad. Not even my husband brings me coffee. Nope. But anyway, so yeah, to me this movie is more about Tess and her professional journey from being a secretary who gets kind of shit on by her bosses to somebody who has ideas and value and is recognized for it. The romance with Harrison Ford is secondary. Although
it's just
it does without that romance, I don't think that she would have ended up where she was, but it's
perhaps. Yeah. I mean, it's just there to like spiderweb the plot a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know, to just make things a little bit more sticky.
Yeah.
And a little bit more, make her downfall seem a little bit more inevitable once the pieces start to be revealed.
Yeah. I think it kind of spices it up because there is this tension between them, and then it adds to the conflict at the end. So for those who have not seen this, Tess is the secretary to Catherine Parker, who is played by Sigourney Weaver, who is a woman in business. Oh my God, so rare. And among other things, and Catherine, they're the same age, and Catherine is Sigourney Weaver, so she's perfect and beautiful and skilled and, very nice in that fake kind of way.
Yeah.
And Tess is always looking for new ideas and really is kind of an eager beaver, wants to be recognized for everything. She tells Catherine an idea that she has. Turns out that Catherine stole it and is going to take credit for it.
Yeah.
And Tess decides, well, I'm not going to let her do it. I'm going to set up this meeting on my own.
Well, and fate intervenes, and Catherine breaks her leg.
Yeah.
And is going to be off the scene for a couple weeks.
Is she meant to be like in Germany when all this is happening?
I don't know. Like not near enough by, to immediately go like there's no reason if you have a broken leg that you couldn't get back to your home city.
I guess. Well, she says, nitpicking the plot here a little bit, she says she's going away for the weekend with this man. And she has this great set of lines where she's like, I think he's going to pop the question. I've indicated I'm receptive to an offer. I've freed up the month of June, and I am, after all, me. And I just like that. I've indicated I'm receptive to an offer. You've been in business too long, lady. This is not. But also, I like that. And I am, after all, me. I wish I had that outlook on life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I could have, when I was applying to grad school, I could have been much more confident and been like, well, I am, after all, me. But I
said that.
Did not. You did. I did not.
You.
I did not say that about myself. I got in, by the way.
Yes. To anyone following that saga.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, tattooing that on my arm. I am, after all, me.
Mm.
But anyway, yeah. So Catherine says, "Oh, he's going away for the weekend with me." Well, later we learn that the man who was supposed to be going with her was Jack, and he couldn't go away with her because he had to work. And I'm like, if you go up to the Poconos, that's an okay excuse. If you're going out of the country for skiing, that is not an excuse.
What? I have to work is not an excuse?
No.
But it's business,
This is a transatlantic flight. This is anyway.
Business happens at the speed of business. Don't you
suppose,
know? It has no time for your
greed
vacations.
is good. Oh wait, different movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That is a little sketchy, but we don't find out that until the end of the movie. So okay.
Also, he was so busy he had to work. Like he is looking for an out from this relationship, and perhaps missing this trip.
He had no intention of proposing. By the way,
no. In fact, we learned his plan was to actually break up with her. If he could have made it there.
Yes. So, when Catherine gets back from recuperating with the broken leg, and discovers that Tess has proceeded with this idea and presented it as her own, which it is. And I don't think she realizes that Tess is getting involved with Jack at that point, but that doesn't matter. That's, again, that part is secondary. She cares more about the work stuff. But we know that Jack is a little bit torn between the two, and so that spices it up a little bit. Catherine is going to get back, we think, both the professional success and Jack, and she gets neither.
Yes.
But the romance is really sort of not the attraction for me. Although, Harrison Ford does look nice shirtless and changing his shirt in his office. Although he's like washing his pits with water. Yeah. That's not okay. It's
business. I'll refer you to the previous line about business.
In the 80s, they did that. They hadn't invented baby wipes.
You had to.
Yeah.
You know,
and also he doesn't wear an undershirt under his dress shirts.
That could probably help with the needing to splash water on the pits.
See, I feel like I don't understand men's fashion, but my father always wore undershirts. So that just seems to me like what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I think it's like anything with men's fashion and women's fashion, like certain types of things, especially probably undergarments, come and go, like slips.
Yeah.
You know, like, and undershirts probably the sort of thing like, oh, nobody wears those. My dad wore those in the 60s. Sure.
Well, you know what? With slips, though, that's the kind of thing where my mom always had me wear a slip, including under my school uniform skirt, which was like, you could make curtains out of those things, very thick. No light was getting through. And so I rejected slips. And then in my 20s, I was like, oh, yeah, this is kind of a good idea. Not with a plaid skirt, like a uniform skirt, but sometimes it's good. So maybe Harrison Ford's come back around by this point.
You mean Jack?
Yeah. Or sure. Harrison Ford too. I don't know.
I mean, it's
the value of an undershirt.
Yeah. I think this is, I mean, this is what movies are in general. They're time capsules.
Well,
this is sort of peak Harrison Ford in his sort of heart throbbiness. It's sort of peak peak Sigourney Weaver, sort of peak Melanie Griffith. Like it's like kind of the high watermark for all of these people in their like beautifulfulness.
I feel like Melanie Griffith was sort of coming up. Really, I don't know how old
maybe
she is, but she's a little baby faced here. But the other two, I think, were big names. But speaking about time capsule, holy smokes! Can we talk about all the clothes in this movie? I should say,
it's great.
Almost all of it is women's clothes.
Yeah.
The men are pretty boring. Although I think there is a clear delineation between. So Tess lives on Staten Island and works in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And there's a clear delineation between Staten Island life, clothes, the way that you speak, the expectations you have for your career, et cetera, and Manhattan. And Tess is, we could say, trying to rise above her station, right?
Yes.
She's gone to school. She went to school at nights to get her degree, but she's also gone to speech classes to change her accent.
She's learning to code switch, as they say today.
Yes. Joan Cusack is her best friend who has this great... Well, to me, Joan Cusack always sounds like she's from Chicago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I guess it works fine. You just... You do something and it sounds like Staten Island. I don't know what I'm sounding like right now.
Sure. Like I would buy it if you told me you're from
Staten Island. Sound like I'm from Manhattan is what I'm saying here. But anyway, so Joan Cusack and puts the accent to great effect.
Oh yeah. And this is some of her great work was in the 80s. She was dependable for the friend.
Yes.
And the kind of irreverent, goofy sort of friend, like she fills the role perfectly.
Well, and something about her is just great for 80s makeup because I think she's got like the cheekbones that look really good with that harsh blush.
Yeah.
And like she can fit 4 stripes of eyeshadow on her eye. Like she's made for the 80s. Does great work now, but the 80s were her time.
Yeah. And this movie is, you're talking about the fashion, the women specifically, the makeup. If anybody listens to this podcast, I'm sure I would get canceled for this. But I'm thinking here specifically of the scene where all of the secretaries are seeing Tess off.
Yeah.
All of them, they look like drag queens.
It's some heavy makeup.
It is so costume makeup, like stage drag show makeup on all of them, just bright eyeshadows.
It's a lot.
Just high cheek, artificially high cheekbones, bright red lipstick.
Well, and the hair is like teased to hell.
Yes.
And does things that physics would not say is possible.
Hey. Higher the hair, closer to God.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Not in New York. But apparently...
No, in New York in the 80s, the higher the hair, the closer to God. Yeah. For real.
I was not allowed to investigate any of this stuff.
You were just about the right age. In 88, you would have been in a good...
you look at So 88, I was 6th grade. 6th. Somewhere
11, 12 years old.
You look at my class picture. It's big bangs, big bangs, and then me. Slicked back ponytail. There was no hairspray in my house. My mom didn't teach me how to do anything with my hair.
No teasing.
No, I still can't tease my hair.
No teasing your brother or your hair.
Right. I still don't know how to do it. I have all this stuff. I do it for a little bit and I'm like, this is weird. It's uncomfortable and it's not going to look good. And so why would I do that? So there was no big 80s hair in my life, in my mom's or mine. But But the clothes here, are
it's crazy.
Well, there are two scenes at weddings, and holy smokes, these wedding dresses and the bridesmaids dresses.
The bridesmaids dresses are great.
I was having flashbacks to around this time, the Sears catalog was still a thing. And it would come to our house, and it was, I swear to you, it was like 2 inches thick.
Oh, yeah. Sears catalog, big deal. Like for anybody who's under like 40, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
You don't understand how big of a deal the Sears catalog
and it was
coming
everything.
To your house was.
It was everything. It was clothes for all ages, every occasion.
Yeah, toys.
It was toys. It was
cookware. It was called
drapes.
The Wish Book, right?
Yeah, that was. I think that was the once a year
the one they came out with like in October or whatever.
Yeah.
It was literally like the things had like little check boxes beside it, so you could just go through and like check off the things
list.
You wanted.
There was cookware, there were drapes, there were rugs, there were little doilies to put in places that you put doilies. I mean, everything. You know,
power tools. There was. I mean,
everything.
Of course, Sears was an old school full service department store. So there were washing machines and, dryers and stoves and video games and power tools.
Imagine an entire website in book form. That's what this Wish Book was.
It's Amazon in book form.
Yeah, in book form. And it had all these wedding dresses and bows everywhere and this cheap, crappy looking satin. And at age 11, 12, I was like, oh, it's so beautiful. The only thing that I did not like was there was a style at the time where the top was like satin and the bottom was just tulle. No actual fabric on the bottom. It just looked like a whole bunch of crinolines. And I was like, it looks like you forgot to get dressed all the way. I don't like this at all. That was the only, but yeah. But the bridesmaids dresses here are A+, complete with hats.
Yeah, the hats at the end. Yeah. There's a point, you were saying bows at the point. There's a point in the movie where Tess puts on a dress and it's very simple. And the what's her name? Sin says, need some bows on it.
And need some bows or something.
Yeah.
And then she looks at the price tag and she goes, $6,000. It's not even leather. Which I think of that sometimes when I am buying clothes and something is a little pricey for my taste in 2022. I think $6,000. Now, let me point out, I've never spent $6,000 on an article of clothing ever.
Yeah.
And it is 40, 30 some years later.
Yeah.
Inflation. We still haven't gotten to that point. Catherine has more money than God.
Yeah. I wouldn't go.
Her parents have more money than God.
Yeah. I wouldn't go as far to say that your entire wardrobe isn't worth $6,000 because it probably is. If you added it all up.
I think that's possible.
But it's like you've definitely never owned a garment, let alone probably a whole wardrobe that's worth much more than that.
And most women, when they say that, they're like, well, except for my wedding dress. No, I got married in a suit that cost $40.
Yeah.
Maybe $60 with alterations.
Yeah. My stuff cost way more than yours because I had to buy I had to have my suit tailored and all this stuff. I mean, I just bought a suit, but
Yeah. But $6,000.
Yeah.
It's not even
great.
leather.
And and like, I'm not like, this is just a throwaway 80s, comedy movie, but like there is some sort of masterful writing in that moment because it perfectly encapsulates the difference. And I'm sure for New Yorkers, this is even more true. Perfectly encapsulates the difference between a Staten Island idea of what's nice and a Manhattan idea of what's nice, which even though we're not from New York and there, like we can extrapolate that out as people who've mostly lived in major cities within our state. Like we can extrapolate out like, well, that's the difference between, Charlotte and Indian Trail or something,
Well, I think what it is the difference between, Steel Creek and Myers Park.
Yeah,
like we are very much the Staten Island in this.
We're in the affordable part of Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah, we are far away from the Manhattan of Charlotte.
Well, and even though Tess has been acclimating herself to, you know, the Manhattan type of lifestyle, even she can't breathe.
Yeah, even
when she's thinking about the $6,000 dress, because she's stealing Catherine's clothes is part of this, right?
Yeah, she's doing the whole nine. Like, she's assuming this identity, you know, she's being the person that she wants to be, or projecting or whatever.
Yeah, like she's you know, and she's being on paper, she's being honest. She's saying, "This is Tess McGill. I work with Catherine." You know, like, she's not telling any lies, but
technically being truthful. Yeah. That, honestly, though, that brings up the biggest thought that I had at the end of this movie is, like, I get you love the last scene, but, like, I want the 10 or 15 year follow up. I want to see her, like, her fall from grace, like, because I would posit that the system that she's injecting herself into will corrupt her. And I want to see that. I want to see the version of her that has been in that business for 10 or 15 years and has either been corrupted or not been corrupted. You know, like, it's because they do the mega happy ending. They do like, this is a stereotypical, almost cookie cutter 80s little guy overcomes movie. You know, these were all over the place in the 80s. You've got a little guy, even like movies like Big are even an example of, like, the little guy that ends up in some sort of corporate power structure or ends up, you know, exceeding their station or whatever. And yeah, there's never the follow up of, like, well, yeah, but within 10 or 15 years, they so bought into the system that they were trying to get into that they ended up being everything they hate. Or did they? Well, you know, or is it, you know, I want to know which is the answer to that. Like, Tess McGill, 2000, 2005, what does she look like in this career? Is she just some high level executive who still maintained her soul, or is she just the next corporate yes man? You know,
that's a fair point, because I was thinking, so Catherine is an example of sort of cutthroat business. This movie kind of uses business as just a catch-all for, you know, everything professional. But I think there is some specifics about mergers and acquisitions there. Yeah. I just don't understand that well enough to really get it. But in the right before Jack meets Tess, so she has set up this meeting. She has a meeting set up with him the next day to discuss this merger that she's proposing. Yep. And she realizes, so his firm is throwing a cocktail party, and she goes as herself. She wants to, like, try to scope him out beforehand. And we see Jack see her. She's wearing this $6,000 dress. And she's got these lovely long Melanie Griffith legs with, I noticed her hose have little diamante crystals up the calf, which was an 80s thing that I, at age 11, 12, thought was, like, amazing. Oh, yeah. They also sometimes had little embroidery on the ankle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you would wear that with an anklet. And like this is giving me so many 80s fashion flashbacks. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But anyway, so right before he sees her, he's having a conversation with two colleagues, and it's some, like, you know, very boring gray looking man, and this woman who is dressed the complete opposite of Tess or of the secretaries, right? Her hair is pulled back, very plain, no makeup. She's wearing, like, a jacket and a tie, and, like, if you were our age, imagine what your mother wore when she wanted to look extremely businesslike. It's that, like, it's the very like 80s woman trying to look sort of like a man.
Oh yeah.
But she is talking about they need to go for this deal, whatever, and she's like, "Trainer, we need to grab him by the balls," you know, really aggressive language. And so when Tess is talking about this deal, her approach to it is more of, we know that this company wants to do XYZ. Here's a way that they can get what they want, and this other thing that they want altogether. So hers is more about like pleasing people.
Yeah.
Helping facilitate deals that everybody wants, as opposed to this other person that we're seeing talking with Jack is much more cutthroat and aggressive and everything. And so, it's kind of set up as, this is the way everyone else does business, and here's how Tess does it. And so, that's an interesting point. Wondering how she is going to be in 15, 20 years.
Well, and I guess in fairness, Jack is also portrayed as this unicorn who is deep into business, but has also not been corrupted fully by it. You know, like when the time comes to be honest, he's honest. He's not, you know, he makes the decision to be honorable instead of just closing the deal. Like, you know, in the moment, he doesn't just do business. He turns his back as well. And like I said, it turns out make a happy ending, but yeah. So, I mean, maybe because it's these two uncorruptible forces, maybe they'll sort of strengthen each other and they both sort of make it through into the aughts and they're not corrupted. But yeah, because it's like they somehow manage to find each other, these two sort of innocent or more. And in fact, like they do kind of a little bit of lip service to the fact that Jack is maybe one more failure away from losing his job, and he's not necessarily closing deals like other people because he's maybe not as cutthroat. So, you know, like, you know,
I don't know if we hear a reason for that. Well, you know, so Catherine at one point says to Tess, this is after we, the viewer, have learned that Catherine and Jack are an item. It's near the end. And she says to Tess, I feel like she's sort of trying to cover her ass a little bit, just in case Tess
that's a little bit of a question mark about the movie.
She says, Jack is very sticky about ethics. If I brought him an idea from another colleague, he wouldn't even touch it. And then Tess says to Jack, would you? And he's like, no, that's fine.
Yeah, of course. Which she also says...
Which for her is a relief. But from what you're talking about, maybe he's not the unicorn that you're saying he is. I don't know.
Perhaps. I don't know. But that's how he's portrayed ultimately. Like ultimately when he has to make a decision, he makes the honest decision, and you get the feeling that none of the other characters in this movie that are business people would make that decision. But yeah, Catherine also covers her tracks by saying that he's been burned on a deal, and he would be concerned about the ethics of it. Yeah. Which, you know, seemingly turns out to be true. Yeah, there's a little bit of a question mark around, and I guess her actions at the board meeting where she basically storms into the meeting where they're finally closing the deal and calls out Tess, and Tess runs away, you know. Prior to that, she's playing it innocent. Like you said, she's like, she notices that the email that she had typed to Jack excluding Tess from this idea to do this project is up on the screen. And she goes, did you see this? Oh, well, no, you wouldn't have seen it, because if you had seen it, you would know that, you know, you would ask me about it, right? Because I just wrote you this because of his ethics concerns, and I couldn't take it directly. I had to say it was from me.
It's a lot of explanation.
Right. So when she's first explaining that, I'm like, oh, that's plausible. And then as the movie unfolds, I'm like, oh no, she was definitely lying about that. Yeah. But there's a moment where you're like, oh no, like they do just enough to make you think like she really is as giving and nice to Tess as she's showing herself to be. But then her subsequent actions show that was all a ruse, and, you know, she was going to use Tess for as many good ideas as she could and, you know, get as much out of her and then probably flush her, you know. Yeah.
Well, I think, so the way that Tess finds out that Catherine has stolen her idea is after Catherine breaks her leg, she tells Tess, okay, I need you to go to the house and house sit, because the housekeeper is in Barbados for a month, which such a lovely little detail. And there's this tape recorder where Catherine's like dictating her correspondence, I guess. And she finds a note from Catherine to herself about send this memo to Jack. Don't go through Tess. Basically like, here's where I'm cheating Tess out of her idea. Right, yeah. But previously, right before that on the tape, she's got a note. It's a thank you note for something. And regarding those horrid little knickknacks, dear so-and-so, thank you so much for the which who among us has not written a faux enthusiastic note for something that we weren't enthusiastic about? But that's set up to be like, Catherine is a two-faced bitch.
Yeah, they're dropping enough hints to get you to realize. But it's her actions following that when she basically just comes in and she takes credit for the idea and says Tess stole it from her and blah, blah, blah. Like the moment that happens, my questions were answered. Yeah. But there was a moment where I was like, oh, maybe she, you know, and for like a split second, they do again a good job in the writing of making you feel bad for Catherine for a second. Like, oh, this. So basically, this lady didn't trust her and has been philandering with her boyfriend, and like But yeah, it all tidies up pretty.
Can we get back
neatly.
to the Jack and Tess meeting for a second?
Sure.
So yeah, he sees her, notices her slim little legs with the diamante crystals on the back.
Yeah.
And he has a rather nice opening line. He says, "Hi, I've been looking for you." She says, "Really?" He says, "Yes. I didn't know who you were. I didn't know who you were, but I promised myself that when I saw you, I'd introduce myself." Like it's swept off your feet. Like
there's no one who would survive that if 1988 Harrison Ford delivered that line to you.
No.
Yeah, there's no resisting.
I would be in a puddle on the floor, which she very nearly is between the Valium and the tequila. But then he says something along the lines of, "You're the only woman here who's dressed like a woman." And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of gross. Like thinking of how hard women in business fields, particularly finance and this kind of thing that they're all in, how hard they had to work to be taken seriously. And that's what women were being told was wear a tie and act like a man and this and that. And so to just kind of poo-poo that, just I know that was the time, but looking at it now in 2022, I'm like, ew, that's gross. I don't like that. Now,
I would argue though that looking at it now in 2022, it is like remarkably forward-thinking and feminist. Like, this is not a bit 100%, but this is partially a bit.
Okay.
I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Oh, like, you know how I love that.
I know. But that's what you want, right? You want women to be able to look however they want to look. You don't want them to have to feel that they have to put on a uniform to do business. And I understand at the time they 100% did. They weren't going to be taken seriously unless they blended in, grab them by the balls, tough talk,
slick back hair.
And they didn't try to look sexy. They didn't try to look feminine. But ultimately what we wanted to happen was to get to a point where a woman could walk in wearing what she's wearing, looking like she's looking, and be taken 100% seriously in that outfit.
Well, except to get ready for this party, Tess doesn't wear her normal clothes. She changes her hair. She changes her makeup. Like she's putting on a uniform too.
Sure. Yeah. No, I don't disagree that she's putting on a uniform. But like I said, I'm partially playing devil's advocate, but I think. Yeah, I don't yes, you're 100% right. It was at the time, that was that was a very misogynist sort of thing to say. But right now, there are probably women going to business meetings dressed the way she was dressed and being taken more seriously. Maybe still not 100%, but some progress has been made. And I think without understanding that they were doing it, he was attracted to her because she was dressed like a sexy lady, but also she ended up being a brilliant business mind, and he respected that too.
Well, sure. I think the reason that he eventually falls for her for sort of the long term is, as she says, "I have a mind for business and a bod for sin," which is it's a great line. It is, but it's so cringy. Like I can't imagine saying that out loud. But the thing that makes him fall for her is the mind, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
The bod doesn't hurt, but I just, so we briefly see his bio earlier. He went to Harvard Business School. He's a successful straight white man in finance in New York City in the 80s. Like he is the power structure. And to hear him talk, just poo-poo these other women who are in the trenches trying to play the part. And, it doesn't sit well with me. Like, it's not his fault necessarily. Yeah. He's just doing what he's been taught, but it's just gross.
No, I agree with you 100%, but I wanted to try that little thought experiment or whatever just to see how you would react.
Don't do that again.
No. What? No. But that's kind of the one moment where Jack is not sort of, I don't know what
he's not a saint.
Where he's not ticking all the boxes.
I think he is very much of his time then.
Oh, sure. I mean, could be worse.
Yeah.
You know, he could be the other two guys that she works with at the beginning.
Well, yes.
And Kevin Spacey, who is in this movie just long enough to be a total creep.
Yeah.
And like, little did we know he wasn't acting in that scene.
I feel like we've seen that many times. People who were playing unhinged and then later were like, oh, they weren't acting. Yeah. Oh.
He actually was kind of.
He's kind of gross.
Yeah.
Although, Oliver Platt, at this point, he's always been a good guy. And so seeing him here as a sleazoid pimp is what she calls him. Like, it's just like, no.
Speaking of Oliver Platt, there's some good appearances in this.
Yes.
Because of several. You spotted Ricky Lake.
Yes.
And in the credits on the Google IMDb credits, it says David Duchovny is in this movie.
I saw it because I was tipped off to that earlier.
I was looking for him.
There's a surprise party.
Yeah.
And he's in the background. He's on the edge of the, because
I saw it's like Tess's birthday guest or something. I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
I feel like there's somebody else. There was another name that I recognized, and it wasn't either of them.
Yeah, there were a few.
But there are some good. So Olympia Dukakis plays the HR person who places Tess at her various things, and Nora Dunn is this kind of bitchy office woman.
Nora Dunn is great. And it's like Nora Dunn is one of those actresses that is just like, she's so underappreciated. Now, I mean, she didn't have a ton of range, but if you needed that character,
she's spot on.
You know, yes, you need like smarmy, nose in the air, aristocratic, better than you female character.
She's
all day.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, there was one other. Oh, who was the other person? I can't. Holy smokes. Oh my God, there's one other person who's great in it, and
one other like famous person?
Yes, and I completely lost it.
Let's see. Oliver Platt, Ricky Lake, Olympia Dukakis, Nora Dunn, David Duchovny.
Well, Philip Bosco plays Trask, who is a good character actor, but that's not who I was thinking of.
Yeah, I'm looking for people that I recognize in the credits here. Douglas, no.
It's just dead air while I try to think of this. Holy
Zach
cow.
Grenier? I recognize him. Grenier? Marceline Hugo?
Okay, I think I've lost it. I really don't know.
All right. Yeah. I'm not seeing anybody else that I recognize in the.
Okay. Well, that was 30 seconds of your life that you'll never get back. I'm sorry.
The guy that plays Armbruster is great. The guy that sells the radio station. Like basically he's playing like, Southern.
Yeah. Like he doesn't say very much, but he's got this long beard that's like combed. So it's straight. And I was just like, did they just go to the costume closet and they're like, what's the most Southern thing we can put on? Like and
he's got like long hair, but he's also balding and it's all white. Yeah. And he's not quite, like
he doesn't
own a radio station, but he's like,
he didn't have an accent.
He's
I was
right
surprised.
There. He's like, got a little bit of a sort of a down homey sort
little
of
corn pone,
draw.
But not too much. Yeah.
He
put on his good suit for going to this big city.
I had to put my good britches on.
Right. Yeah, I'm a little surprised they didn't have him in like overalls and with
or just a white suit with the little black tie.
He does. He kind of looks like Colonel Sanders' cousin.
He really. I don't know. He may be the same actor. He looks, and you won't get this. He looks like the medulla oblongata guy from The Waterboy.
I don't know.
So just anybody out there,
Okay.
Looks like something's wrong with his medulla oblongata.
Okay, that's a little weird. But,
well, you'll see Waterboy at some point because eventually I'll have to go into the Adam Sandler, whether you like it or not. Okay. I'll have to go into the Adam Sandler catalog.
Okay. Well, speaking of all the men that Tess encounters who are all just horrible in their own way.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Alec Baldwin?
Sure. Yeah, he's in this.
What a fucking douchebag.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, there was this period where Alec Baldwin just played greaseball pigs. And then he didn't. Like, well, Glengarry Glen Ross, he was still a pig.
Yeah.
But then he was doing Jack Ryan, and then he sort of cleaned up a little bit, and now his fortune has, things have gone wrong.
But it was like, I think at Central Casting in the 80s, it was like, hey, we need a greaseball boyfriend. Like, okay, is this set in New York or L.A.? And that was like, oh, it's New York. Oh, I got Baldwin. I got Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
I got any of several Baldwins, actually.
Do you need him to be Irish or Italian? Because Baldwin can do either one.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah. His name is Mick Dugan, so he's clearly Irish, he could do... if you told me he was Italian, I would buy that 100%.
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah, he's got the swarth to also play Italian easily.
Well, and he's just kind of like, he doesn't understand anything that Tess wants, and he... on her birthday, he gives her this very strappy lingerie set, and she's like, just one side like a sweater.
Yeah.
something that I could wear outside the apartment.
Right. That's a great line.
Yeah. Like he's into, he wants her to be there for sex, and he probably wants her to cook and clean, and he probably resents all the time that she spends at work and at the classes and all those things.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And he, I'm sure, had this thing with working for Catherine lasted longer. He would really hate that Catherine was in charge of things.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, because she comes home and she discovers, what does he say? I find you poppin' Doreen DiMuccio, or something like that. It's this lovely way of describing it. Yeah. And he says, this isn't what it looks like. Well, it is. But
I can explain.
But
I can't.
Tess, I'm sorry. Come back. Like, oh, you said you're sorry. Oh, yeah. Okay.
He's like, aren't you even going to hit me or something? Like you get the feeling maybe this isn't the first time.
No.
But yeah, like I think it's probably again, like this is a movie made for everybody. Mm-hmm. But I bet if you're from Staten Island, this movie hits especially in 1980s. Well, this movie probably hits a special place.
Yeah.
But yeah, like everybody's
Staten
got
Island
greaseball,
or New Jersey or somewhere in Chicago, or greaseballs that are everywhere.
Everywhere somebody's going through the motions in a relationship because they feel that they have to, with someone that they don't 100% love, who doesn't 100% love them back. Like, yeah, it's a universal story, but with a very specific, I mean, it's like My Big Fat Greek Wedding, or any of these movies that are putting you inside of an ethnic family unit or a geographical place that you're not familiar with. You're going to get a little bit more from that movie. If you're Greek, you're going to get a little bit more from this if you're Staten Island. But yeah, like it is a story that can be drawn out to just about anywhere. Everybody has been or knows someone who has been in this sort of relationship. And there's even a thing about them, when are you guys going to finally get married? And it's this sort of, like they're just kind of coasting through life with each other.
Room, guys. Like,
No. Whether or not, I don't know how many people involved in that know what had just, because this happens like days after the catching him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as my mother said, the decision to get married only involves two people. Outside pressure does not help. Oh my God, I had another point and I lost it. What is wrong with me today?
I don't know. This is one of those movies that's set in New York and just like really loves New York.
Yes.
And, as always, if you were, I don't know, under 30, you're not necessarily going to wince every time you see the Twin Towers. Like we do, but like this movie is very in love with the New York skyline, specifically the towers. There's 2 or 3 just lingering shots on them.
I typically don't wince, but this time, like they're panning around the Statue of Liberty, and then you see the skyline, and I was like, I think you can see them. I think you think. Oh yeah, right there.
There they are.
Oh my gosh. Oh, and they just dwarf everything else.
Yeah.
Like you
there's
think,
a nighttime shot.
Yeah, like you think, oh, those buildings are pretty small. No, they're probably like 30 stories. So, oh my God, that's huge. Yeah. It just,
yeah. So that's always fun to, and it's not like, I don't have a special attachment to 9/11, like, yes, I was 20, whatever, 21, 22 when it happened.
Yeah.
So it's a full part of my like adulthood. But
as a news event, it's seared into my memory, but I don't have memories of the buildings. But yeah, seeing them right there and knowing
I have no
those
previous. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, but yeah, that's always going to be interesting, and it's also going to be very interesting how different audiences over time react to that, because our kid, who is 11, never, he's 10 years removed from even ever seeing them when they were still up, and only knows about them as this historic event, which in his mind is probably analogous to Pearl Harbor, just as far as like an American attack on America. Which for me, Pearl Harbor was a thing that happened many years in the past. So,
well, I think, kids his age, they have a lot of fun facts about it. Like, did you know that? Like, yes,
on the 34th floor.
I did know. I read about it.
Yes,
the next day. It's not.
She didn't actually surf down the rubble.
Yeah, I've had to, like, I was in a helping with a Sunday school class with kids about this age, and and I had to walk away. I'm like, you guys, I'm sorry. I remember it happening. I can't be part of this fun fact conversation. It is definitely a different a different thing to see those when you were not alive or paying attention for this.
Yes. But we've talked before about movies that are made in New York and are like love letters to the city. This isn't quite on that level, but yeah, like you can tell the people that were making this movie liked that city. Yeah. And now that ends up being like historical preservation footage. Yeah. But, at the time they were just like, if you live here, you see this all the time.
Of course you do. Yeah. I remember the thing that I was going to say. This is not a deep insight, but this is pretty much a Cinderella story.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
the fairy godmother is Catherine's broken leg. Yeah. And, and then even, she goes to this meeting with Jack to introduce the idea, and she has this crappy file folder for her papers. She's like, oh, I lost my briefcase. And he somehow sees through this and visits her at the office and brings her a new brief. So that's the glass slipper. It's, you can read a whole lot into it, but it's essentially just, rising above your station to something else.
Yeah. And this was an extremely popular, like I was saying before, type of movie to make in the 80s. People understood in the 80s what all of this corporate greed was going to lead to. And we now live in this world post all that happening. But people understood, and people were making these movies that, viewed through the lens of today, are like kind of subversive on a pretty major level, because they're trying to subvert this corporate structure of greed and install people into the structure through the rom-com happenstance that would bring with them the moral values of the common person. And there were, and it wasn't always a corporation. Sometimes it was other types of power structures, but like the 80s was full of that.
I don't know if I see this as a commentary on, subverting the greed-based finance system. I think that's just, I don't know. That's just luck that it works out that way. But
I don't think it's explicitly. I'm saying but in retrospect, it is. And I just think there were a lot of movies that were about elevating a common man into a position beyond their station in the 80s. Whatever the subject matter might have been. This one happens to be this corporate structure, but
I wonder what the sequel, where she's kind of a Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, railing against, going up against Gordon Gekko, and it's not all about greed. I don't know how that would go, but I remember the other actor who's in it, who plays her secretary at the end, is Amy Aquino, who is always a good character actor. She was on ER, and she was on Felicity for a long time. She was Felicity's
I recognize
therapist.
her hair.
Yeah. And what's odd is she does not look like an 80s character at all, because she's got this big curly hair, which I guess
kind of bouffant.
Couldn't be teased into anything. And she's not wearing the 80s clothes and not the makeup and everything. And so it's refreshing to see her looking like I expect people to look. And also like, oh, it's Amy Aquino. Okay. We're in for a good couple minutes here. Here we go.
Yeah. Anything else to say about Working Girl? I think you got anything?
It's so weird to me that anybody would expect their secretary to get them coffee. And that's something that Tess does at the end. And she's like, I don't expect you to get me coffee.
Yeah. Unless you're getting some for yourself.
Yeah.
Which is, which
is a very kind thing, I think. But also, like, I don't ever, like, I will get it because I don't trust anyone to make it for me. Like, I know exactly how I like it. And that's just,
you're going to mess it up.
Weird. But
yeah. To the point where if someone offers me coffee, I usually just say no. Like, I was over at a friend's house one time and he offered me coffee and I was like, probably okay with that. And he's like, are you sure? It's AeroPress or whatever the thing is. And I was like, okay, sure. And I tried it and it was good and I enjoyed it, but I felt very awkward. Because I wanted to be like, you're not going to make it. You don't have my special creamer that I like that makes me able to tolerate coffee.
Well, I feel like you're very awkward with hospitality. You're not okay.
Oh, incredibly.
Yeah.
So, yes, incredibly. Yeah. But I think the role, this is a sort of very sort of movie version of the relationship between a secretary and a boss of like, the secretary is getting the dry cleaning and, she expects her to like clean her house while she's not there.
Serving at the cocktail party. Are you kidding me?
And maybe this is just us being ignorant yokels. I mean, I don't know. You're from Chicago.
No, I'm not.
Well, you're from close to Chicago.
I'm a yokel essentially.
But maybe that is how things worked. I mean, if not now in the 80s, where a secretary or assistant, as your girl at the end prefers, was just like a personal servant.
Well, my best information about secretaries comes from Mad Men, and all the secretaries. Well, when else would I have learned that? I mean, there was
noted realistic historical recreation Mad Men.
That's the best I got.
Go ahead.
But they're always, the secretaries are stocking their desks with, spare shirt and bourbon and Tums and aspirin. And they're like, their boss's secretaries for appointments and stuff, but also like their mother and their wife. And they like would cover for, oh, Mrs. Draper, I'm sorry, I don't know where he is. Winks frantically at the boss who is stooping somebody inside. Like, all sorts of duties that are not work related. So I guess getting coffee is not that big of a deal in comparison, but
Although when I think of when I think of a secretary, I think of Scrooged, Alfred Woodard and Scrooge, who is like, there's a point where the big boss is coming to Frank Cross's office and she's like straightening his belt and his tie and she's like getting him ready and there's the scene where she has to take her kid to the doctor and he's like, if you can't work late, I can't work late.
Well, and you know what, now that I think of it, so I know what secretaries are like on the West Wing. That's
true.
That too. And Donna Moss is like, here's your shirt. I went and took your chair to the repair shop and I did this and he needs to go in on Saturday, so I need to go in. Yeah, well.
Maybe we're just not liberal elite enough, Mary, and we haven't experienced the life of, we need to become less liberal and more elite.
Well, every so often I think, oh my gosh, I've made it in the world. I'm, income wise and status wise. And then I look at other stuff and I'm like, nope, I am as much of a yokel as I ever was.
Yep.
And that's fine. But I'll never have my own office like Tess.
Other than the office that you currently have.
That's true. My view is not nearly as good as hers.
It's obscured by bushes.
Yeah.
And even if it wasn't, it'd just be the cul-de-sac.
Yeah. Well, that's a view, but it's just bushes.
Sure.
She gets to look out in other people's windows and spy.
Yeah.
Which is something.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that made me think about the idea of what she would be like in 10 or 15 years is the final shot where they pull out from her office and they show that she's just one of hundreds of offices lining the side of this building.
That's a little chilling.
Yeah. And I'm just like, is this telling me that she's like
a cog in a machine?
Yeah, because she also says, and again, like if you want to read into it, when she's telling her secretary her expectations, she says, we'll figure out the rest.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, like this, like, sure, this starts out all nice and, don't get me coffee unless you're getting some for yourself and call me Tess. And then 10 years from now, she's basically Catherine.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's like if you want to read into that, because it's a very sort of somber in a lot of ways. Like, wow, like she's just one. But then you could also read it as, here is the start of change. This one office out of these hundreds, and it's going to spread.
Well, and you kind of, because you can see the people in like the offices on either side of her, and in one, somebody's like standing up doing filing or whatever, and I was like, what else are we going to see? Are we going to see like above her, people are making out in the window, and below, people are having a fight, and but there's nothing exciting really.
Yeah. It's like they pull back and it's like the zombie apocalypse in New York.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, that's an odd shot because it's clear. I mean, it's the 80s camera technology, whatever. It's a little gray and grainy and not as well, not as good technically
it's on a helicopter.
Inside.
And
so it is a little somber.
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah. But regardless, she got her own office.
Yeah, she did it.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
My mom had an office at her. She had an office at her office. It was a small group. So she had her own thing. It was pretty large for an office, and she had stuff on the walls, and and it was a good thing that she had her own space because she was messy. She had printed out papers everywhere, and a couple times they said the fire marshal is coming. You need to clean up
your.
And she did the minimum to get, but
make this less of a fire hazard.
Yes. You would die if there were a fire in here. So she would, you didn't need to print everything out, but she did. But anyway, so that's what I think of when I think of an office. And if I ever get an office at work, I'm going to be putting things on the walls and it will be delightful.
Yeah. There's some I wasn't really allowed to do that in any of my offices. Like you could put stuff up on the shelves and stuff like that. But one second.
We have a cat extraction.
Yeah, if you heard that thumping, that was her tail hitting the mic. Okay, Like we were like one of the guys put a bunch of like beer steins, up on the top of his whatever.
Yeah,
the overhang above his shelves or whatever. Yeah, so like it was stuff like that. But yeah, like you couldn't really do a whole lot. There were like some dumb paintings there that no one cared about. In fact, I cared about those paintings so little that at one point someone was visiting. I was on the first floor, and on the second floor they had bigwigs visiting, and these people were not related to me. They were not in the same department as me, so these same VPs were not also coming to visit me. And someone I knew from up there came down and was like, can we borrow these paintings? Because we want to make our area upstairs look nicer. And I was like, borrow them. You can have them. Like, I don't care.
And it was like standard boring office art
sailboat,
someone got at home.
Like slightly abstract sailboat, like painting of a barn.
That's not impressive. That's,
just several colored shapes, like that kind of stuff. Yeah, just like total corporate.
God.
We bought 80 of these,
The kind of stuff that Tyler Durden would replace them with penises, that type of thing. Yeah.
Totally.
Geez. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well,
anyway, that's Working Girl. Sorry, we went a little all over the map.
That's fun. That's what we do.
But yeah, I think it is hard for you to understand the feelings that I have.
Oh
about
yeah,
this.
no, 100%. This is, this is a movie about a time when women were still struggling. Not that they're not still struggling, but we're struggling just for a place at the table, really.
I feel very fortunate that whether it was an accident of when I was born or the field that I went into, or I've never felt like I had to prove myself as a woman in any of my workplaces. They were all fairly gender balanced. Now, I feel like I have to prove myself as an older person, but that is probably just me and not
right.
That's just a me thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing to think about what women would have gone through in like the 70s and 80s, and let alone if you're pregnant or have kids, or
especially and there's another movie, baby boom.
Yes.
It's this sort of stuff that, like I said, it was a New York time capsule, but it's also a time capsule for a time like this.
Yes. Everybody thank the women who went before you, because they did more than you will ever know.
Yes.
And on that note, folks, we would love to hear what you think about this. For example, what is your favorite line from Joan Cusack, and why is it the one about $6,000 that's not even leather? Can you do a better Joan Cusack impersonation than I can? I sure hope so. Please drop us a line and tell us about it. You can reach us on Twitter or send us an email or reach us on Facebook. Our handle is the same for all three. It's YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. You can reach us on Twitter at gmail.com or on Facebook. And on Twitter and Facebook, we post links to our newest episodes, which come out every other Wednesday, every 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, so 2 weeks from today, there'll be a new episode coming out. We're on all your major podcast providers, specifically Apple Podcast, and we would love it if on any of those providers you would rate, review, and subscribe. If you rate and review, then you let other people know about our podcast, or, just tell your friends. Say, hey, they've got this really long list of actors who are in this movie. Come listen to it. It'll be fun. And if you subscribe, you get the latest episodes right in your queue. For example, 2 weeks from today, you'll get our newest episode, which is going to be what, Dave?
Let's watch another Mike Nichols movie.
Okay.
It's going to be Biloxi Blues, the semi-autobiographical Neil Simon stage play turned movie.
How have I never seen that?
Yeah,
and how have you seen it? And I haven't.
This is a real turnaround here. Yeah. Well, we sometimes you're getting movies out of the wood grain VHS drawer.
Okay.
Multi-tiered VHS.
It was
drawer.
Multi-tiered. I didn't know that. I thought it was.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it was. I say multi-tiered. It was multiple. Three drawer units stacked on top of each other.
Okay, I see.
And sometimes your mom gets a drawer.
Oh,
and it's got things in it like Biloxi Blues. And at some point you're bored and you watch it because it looks like a military movie, and then you realize that it's not really a military movie. But it's like interesting,
but it's
funny.
Got the guy from Ferris Bueller. But
right, it's also got Ferris. It's basically Ferris Bueller Goes to Boot Camp. Really, I'm not exaggerating. It really is a lot of you'll see.
I just recently saw on YouTube, it was one of these things where it's like recut trailers. It was a trailer for Ferris Bueller as if it were a twee indie comedy, probably from 2002, like you were talking about.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I want to see a cut of this of Biloxi Blues where it's Ferris Bueller Goes to Boot Camp, or combine the two of them, and
yeah.
So,
but it's top tier Matthew Broderick performance. It's great. It really is. It really is. One of my favorites of all time. So we'll watch.
So
we're
going from A Love Letter to New York to A Love Letter to Biloxi, Mississippi.
Sure.
But Mike Nichols is a thread, so you can't go wrong. So, all right. Well, we'll see you in 2 weeks with Biloxi Blues. In the meantime, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io.